Hello and welcome to another edition of Mike Hagan and the Strength Team podcast. Been in Florida for the last couple of weeks. It's been awesome. Last week, of course, we were in Okeechobee, a great event, also in Greenville, South Carolina. Unbelievable event. God touched people's lives in a great way. So here we are. It's March 1st today, and good things are happening. We're getting ready, actually, tomorrow to leave for Oregon. We'll be in Lebanon, Oregon, and then the week after that, we're going to be in Sweet Home. And so up until the first 2 weeks of March, we're going to be in the Oregon area, all the way from Florida to Oregon. Man, we bounce all over the place. And so anyway, all is going great with the Strength Team. We're seeing a lot of people getting saved every week. But what I want to talk about is kind of part two of what I was talking about last week. I want to talk about building your life on a solid foundation. You ever think about a person, from the time that they grow up as a little kid and a baby, and then they grow up in life and they have values, and we always talk about that in a Strength Team program that God loves people. He loves everybody. He loves white, yellow, it doesn't matter what race, what color, what creed, what country, 6.8 billion people on the planet today. Nobody is like you. Everybody is an individual. Everybody's different. They have a different DNA structure. We didn't come from a monkey, and we didn't come from a piece of protoplasm in a rock. God was the one who created us and designed us. And so what matters is some point in our life is that we have to have an encounter in our heart with the Lord. You see, God lost us because of sin. We've got a big problem. Romans 3:23 says we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And so we know that 2,000 years ago that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, came to live 33 years on this earth. He died a brutal death for you and I. He rose from the dead on the third day. He made salvation available to us so that we can know God and have a relationship with Him in our heart. And it just doesn't happen by us going to church, or it just doesn't happen by, us being a good person, or if we get baptized. But it happens when we invite Him in our heart. When we open up the door of our heart and do what it talks about in Revelations 3:20. God stands at the door of your heart and He knocks. And that doorknob is on the inside of your life. And so you open up the door of your heart, you allow Christ to come live in your life, and then there's a solid foundation that's established at that moment. And some people's foundation, in the beginning, sometimes they go through, some rough times, especially in those early days of walking with the Lord. I know when I first became a Christian, I gave my heart to the Lord when I was a junior in college. And the sanctification process in the life of Mike Hagan took a little while. The Lord's still even working on me today. There's always a work that's going on. But here's the thing, is that you want the foundation of your life to be solid. So what I'm saying is that first of all, we've got to know Christ. Do you realize that we travel across the country, and a lot of people that are in church every Sunday that have never opened up the door of their heart? They know all the things in their mind about God, but they've never had the revelation of that the Lord loves them in their heart. They've never understood that it's something personal between them and God, not something they do in church on Sunday. And so what I want to share with you, last week I shared in part 1 about 1 Corinthians chapter 10, 1 Corinthians 3, verse 10, and then it talked about, not having our foundation built with straw or hay or stubble or stone or gold or silver, but to have that the Lord is the one that's got to build a house. Unless the Lord buildeth a house, they that labor, they labor in vain. And so this is what I wanted to read to you this morning. And the reason why I just wanted to talk to you about knowing Christ is because there's a lot of people that know about God here, but they don't know God here. 18 inches. Got information, never got the revelation. I didn't get the revelation until I was 21. But before that, I knew about God, but I didn't know that He loved me. I didn't know that He had a plan and a purpose for my life. And so this is what I want to read to you. It's very, very powerful. Matthew 7, Jesus is preaching on the Mount. His first message He preaches, Matthew 5, 6, and 7. And the very last thing He says, it's Matthew 7:21. Not everyone who says unto me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only he who does the will of my Father in heaven. Many will say in that day, Lord, Lord, did not we prophesy in your name? And didn't we drive out demons and perform miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoer. See, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people that might have, they might know about God in their mind. They might go to church, but in their heart they've never been changed. 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, for anyone who's in Christ is a new creation. Old things pass away. Everything becomes brand new. But here's a kicker right here. Because Jesus, after he says, away from me, you evildoer, I never knew you. But then he comes in 24 and says, therefore. Now, after making that powerful of a statement, you got to hear what he's going to say, because he's going to say something that really is going to be impacting. And it kind of goes along with last week's message about building your life on a solid foundation. 24 says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who builds his house on the rock. The rains came down, the streams arose, the winds blew, they beat against the house, yet the house did not fall because it was built upon the rock. Man, I'm telling you something. There are so many times when it comes down to when we talked about, you got to go through the fire, and things got to be trusted into. And sometimes you can never know what your life is built upon until you go through a little bit of a storm. Not that God causes that to happen. I mean, the Bible does says that God disciplines those he loves. But at the same time, when our world is rocked a little bit, you can really see what a person's made up of. Because it goes on to say, but everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who builds his house in the sand. The rains came, the streams arose, the winds blew, they beat against the house, and its house fell, and its crash was great. And you hear it all the time. You hear it all the time on people maybe going through storms of life, problems that have happened in their family, different things that, problems, struggles, life, just different stuff like that. And it just turns out to be just rubble. And God doesn't want it that way. He wants to take our rubble. He wants to make that solid foundation. But it's got to be built upon Christ. It's got to be built upon Him. So I just want to encourage you. Listen, you think about, I mentioned this last week, that one of our members of our team, Jeremy Baker, was in Haiti the week that we were in Miami, the week of the Super Bowl. And it was amazing. He said that all these houses, everything was just crumbled. It was you go over there, and if you read, there is no code. There's no code or a standard for building in Haiti. And so basically you got concrete walls with no rebar on them, built on sand. And you saw what happened. I mean, from the newspaper, over 110,000 people died. It was unbelievable, the devastation that they're still trying to work through today. And still, we need to pray for the people of Haiti. I know that's really dear to our heart. One of the things, the strength team, we really believe God to do a work over there, just like a lot of people around the country, our country do. But here's the thing. Can you imagine that being a person's life? And now all that rubble. Man, I'm telling you something. You can go and see rubble in people's lives. At one time, they were doing good, but their foundation wasn't built right. And what I'm saying is, have your foundation in Christ, the solid rock. Not to say that you're never going to go through a problem. Man, we're all going to go through problems. But He'll take you through it. He'll take you through it every time. And you know what? It just doesn't, it's from day to day. From day to day, and we go from situation to, problems to victories, mountaintop experiences. Then there's times when, even in Psalms, they walked through the valley of Baca. Baca was a bad place. Man, everybody likes to be on top of the mountain, but then there's that time we got to walk through the valley. And we need to know that the Lord is with us. It doesn't matter what's happened to you today. What matters is tomorrow. And let today be the first day of the rest of your life. Let today be a day that you make a decision in your heart that you're going to walk in victory, that you're going to walk in the Spirit, that your life is going to be based on Christ, and nobody is going to shake you in your life. So friends, we'll see you next week. Next week, of course, we're going to be in Oregon next week, middle of our Oregon tour. It's going to be March the 8th. Is that right? March the 8th, Monday, March the 8th. The next podcast is going to be released, and it's going to be great. We got some awesome footage from one of our crusades that we've done in the recent months. And so I know you're going to enjoy it, and thank you for joining us on another edition of Mike Hagan and the Strength Team Podcast.